Hello and welcome to Alta Live. I am so excited to welcome all of you today. If you are excited to learn about past military history, the missile silos that dot the country, Oppenheimer, the atomic bomb, funky Airbnb travel stays, we've got it all for you today. With Gary Baker, we're going to discuss, he owns and operates a decommissioned missile silo just outside of Roswell, New Mexico, that he operates as, and he lives in it, and he operates it as a wildly popular Airbnb rental. So it's pretty exciting to have Gary today. In fact, he was featured in the most recent issue of Alta Journal in an article by Mark Wallace that is fantastic, and I hope you check it out. Please do. A little bit about Gary. He has devoted much of his life to the care and rehabilitation of disused missile silos. In fact, his family was instrumental in building many of them. He owns and operates the true Cold War relic Atlas F missile silo and bunker, a decommissioned missile silo, and Airbnb rental property. So we're going to talk with him today. We're going to see pictures of it. Hi, Oakland. Hi, San Francisco. Please let us know where you're zooming in from as I do my opening spiel, which includes a hearty sales pitch for Alta Journal. Alta, if you are unfamiliar, is an award-winning quarterly focused on California and the West. Our current issue, newly released, features a story on Oppenheimer and artificial intelligence. What is the connection between the atomic bomb, weapons of mass destruction, and AI? So we also have an incredible section called Gimme Shelter, all about housing. That's where Gary comes into this with his incredible living situation just outside of Roswell, Idaho, Asheville, North Carolina. Hi, everyone. So if you're interested in Alta, what we do here, I so hope you'll check out our website, altaonline.com. Consider joining us as a member. We host weekly events like this, California Book Club, a number of in-person events around the West Coast. So do check us out. Hey, Joshua Tree. With that, I'm going to kind of dive right in and talk to Gary. Gary, thank you so much for joining us. You are above ground.
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
But you are you atop your missile silo right now? Where are you?
Yes, ma'am. We are. We just brought in a tiny house and we're running the electrical in it right now, getting ready. Yeah, I think over the next 90 days, we're going to be raising the silo doors. So we wanted a new unit to be available to just enhance the experience more, that not only can you stay underground, we're going to allow you to stay above ground. So it's, plus we have a new aircraft coming in that will be obviously making that into an Airbnb apartment. So we're pretty excited with the things coming on.
I like how you say obviously. Obviously, we're going to turn this airplane into a residential rental space.
Well, it's, I don't have a problem thinking outside the box.
Clearly.
Maybe it's the nature of the beast of missile bases themselves. These put our country on a footing, par excellence, in my opinion.
Wow. Okay. Well, so let's get into your kind of history and relationship, your family history and your interest in missile silos, because that's a multi-generational history from what I understand. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. In the process of building missile bases, our country's first, we literally did not, have a lot of information on it. Most of my family either were part of the constructors, part of the engineers, the superintendents. My father did the sites in Alaska, both for the Air Force and for the U.S. Army. I come from a long line, you might say, on Sunday evenings around the supper table. There was missile bases being talked about. In the United States, we think of heavy construction as dams, big, civil projects. However, I disagree. I think it was building missile bases by far pushed the United States from an engineering standpoint off the charts. Because in a short period of time, we went from 0 to literally over 1,054, not counting the 123 first generation sites. So,
and working with and around these missile silo sites has been a huge part of your life and career. You were mentioning to me earlier, you currently own 2,
Mhm.
and you've worked on a total of 40 of them.
Yes.
What do you mean? What do you mean worked on them? What does that
Well,
entail?
either consulted on them from the standpoint of whether we're going to turn them into a primary residence, a commercial application. It really just depends. I've worked on these all over the America. I mean, because, understand, America doesn't have missile bases next to Disneyland. We have, we are typically across the Midwest in the northern portion of the United States.
And what in terms of like your work on first of all, how many are there? How many
Well,
missile
if we
silos
take
are?
the first generation ICBM sites, we have 123. Of those 123, the ones that I have right here, for example, are the Atlas Fs. There are 72 of those, not counting the 3 training sites at Vandenberg Air Force Base in California.
And these are now used for, I mean, some of the things that, as you were mentioning, like people really do, in addition to you and your family, live in some of these missile silos. Are
Absolutely.
they, do you find, and I did in kind of trying to research you, I realized that there is a kind of a missile silo community out there, people who are very interested in the history, in addition to the preppers, which I want to get to, people who are preparing for the apocalypse. They're just kind of history, military buffs, Cold War buffs, who are fascinated by this aspect of international, I would say American, but international history. Are those the people who are living in the missile silos? Is it just, my dad's really into trains. He's, is it just that sort of kind of passion and interest? Or is it people who really think that the end of the world is
I
going to
think
come
we
and they
have
got
a
to be underground?
combination. The latter part of that, I'm going to put the prepper side. And of course, I'm no disparagement, nothing like that, but it's just, it really depends on where they're coming into this from. I mean, you have to imagine in the 70s when I played in the bulk of these sites, going to military school in Roswell, when someone comes into the barracks area and says, hey, do you know we have missile bases outside of Roswell? Well, of course, it just created this environment. This was the one system none of my family worked on. They worked on all the other sites, but none of these. So it just created this. You could not go back to Roswell, to the public library or the New Mexico Military Institute library and get a paragraph about the Atlas F program. So it just created this marvelous environment of wanting to know more. And then, of course,
Okay. Well, so
well, and then it's how far do you really want to take it? The one thing that intrigued me the most, these sites, through a bit more research, were only in operation for 2 years. Keep in mind, it took longer to build them. It took 2.5 years to build them. I mean, when I found out that the average person in America could own a missile base, I was all in. I mean, it was like, wow, you're kidding me, right? I mean, and I'll be honest, my last name was not Gates, Bezos, or Musk. So when the average Joe could own a missile base, is fun.
all right. Well, so if you don't mind, let's take a peek at your missile base.
There it
So
is.
This is one of the 2 this is site number 4.
Yes.
Am I correct?
Yes.
We're looking at, I think this is a photo by Alta photographer Scott Baxter. I've also grabbed some photos from your Airbnb site. So again, folks, if you're watching, you can stay, you can rent on Airbnb, just book it like you book any other Airbnb, and go stay here. Matt Twombly, who does some graphics for us, has created this diagram. And this I really want to ask you about, just in terms of the history or the lay of the land, as it were, of these missile silos. Right now, we can see the Baker where you and your family live on the lower level. Upstairs is the Airbnb, and then we've got the stairwell and scary tunnel to the missile site.
Right.
But what was during the Cold War, when this was built, what was happening and what is now this residential area?
Well, I mean, it basically outside of Roswell, New Mexico, Walker Air Force Base, for example, this was all, and it still is, it's state land. There's no neighbors. It's a great place for missile bases. And that's one of the reasons. Of course, Roswell was chosen. I mean, it was just too interesting from that standpoint. And then on top of it, Walker Air Force Base was the premier delivery system, anything atomic for America. So it was very natural for Walker in the Roswell area to get 12 of these missile bases.
Sure. But what I'm saying is in this area over to the left, on the left, kind of the left circular thing,
Right, the control center.
what is
Okay.
now the residential area, that was what, like the missile, where you press the button if you're going to set off the
lower
missile?
level, the lower level where my family lives would have been the area in which they would have received the presidential emergency war order and began the physical operation in front of the launch console of launching the Atlas F missile. The upper level that is being used as the Airbnb apartment is where the 5-man launch crew at one point lived. Their kitchen, their bathroom, things like that.
Oh, so 5 people, presumably
Yes,
men,
ma'am.
I guess, back
2
then.
officers and 3 enlisted personnel, what we call a combat crew commander, a deputy, and then the 3 technicians that ran the physical site, the missile, and the electronics and the power production. So now please do not get me wrong. There was no way that with the complexity of this system that 5 men could have kept this thing running. I'm sorry, on a daily basis, it's most likely we could have had up to 30 maintenance personnel trying to keep the alert times up.
Wow.
That was one of the issues with when you constantly hear me say first generation.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, keep in mind when construction, for example, began on this site in June of 1960, we didn't even have the technology. We didn't even have the first successful in-silo launch of a missile. That didn't occur until May of 1961. We didn't have the time, in essence, to wait. So what did our engineers, thinking outside the box? They created in essence, a 40-foot tall, 4-story, 400,000-pound elevator, for a better choice of words. They called a launch platform to lift an 82-foot tall, 10-foot in diameter missile up 186 feet. The counterweights to that structure was nearly 1 million pounds. I mean, this is engineering that even the state of New Mexico in the early 60s called one of the greatest engineering feats. And as for the cover of your magazine of J. Robert Oppenheimer, to be put in the same realm as Manhattan Project and these folks is a true testament to what our engineers had to come up with.
Wow. And so this was built, the process of building this began in 1960. When was it decommissioned?
Roughly 2 years later, we had 3 accidents here in the Roswell area.
Okay.
3 of the missiles blew up. Okay. Out of the 12 sites. Yeah, exactly. No crews were harmed. When the 4th missile blew up outside of Alta, Oklahoma, where another 12 sites are located, former Defense Secretary McNamara shut that program down. So effective January 1st, 1965, started a staged deactivation of the Atlas Fs, which by the end of June, all first generation sites, 123 across America, were no more.
When did they become available to, as you said, the everyman? When did the Gary Bakers of the world get to buy them?
For the typical Atlas F sites were in the spring of 1968. They were declared excess the summer of 1965, early 1966, and started the process. To give you a quick analogy, most with the missile on an Atlas F site cost the US taxpayers $22 million a copy. This site that we're talking from sold for $1,700 at government auction.
Oh,
But, you know, I say
$1,700.
that for the wow power. I mean, you know, it's, look, at the end of the day, again, ask yourself, what in the world are we going to do? What is America going to do with an obsolete basing mode of an obsolete missile system in the middle of nowhere? I mean, I'm sorry. What was our primary mission? It was to launch a weapon of mass destruction. Call
Yeah,
a spade a spade. The alternative wasn't, when we're done doing that, we're going to bake cookies. Sorry, it's not the, you know, we're going to have a commercial cookie operation. It just, did the US Air Force try to come up with an alternative? Yes, they did. I mean, there's just nothing they could do with these. I mean, think about what the logistics would be like. From a little tiny community at the time, Roswell probably, I don't think Roswell, New Mexico was 25,000 people. And then the Air Force Base goes out in July of 67. There's just not much.
right. Well, so let's take a look at what you now have.
That's a lot of fun.
So this, it's as we saw in the diagram, and just in case anyone wants to go back, you come in through the entrance up here, you go down the stairwell.
Yeah. Make a right-hand turn. Yeah.
Yeah, and so we're coming down the stairwell and
Yeah.
into
What we call a blast lock. That's the first door in the blast lock. It's 4,000 pounds of manganese steel. You'll notice all of the 90-degree turns that you're making. That was to offset the blast of a nearby blast. But keep in mind, America and the former Soviet Union. I mean, our accuracy on this missile system was, to begin with, was 8 miles. It wasn't until the latter part of 1964, with numerous upgrades, that we could bring that down into the 2-mile range.
Yuri, your passion for this is really fun. All right, and so this is taking us where? At this point,
That is the utility.
Thank you so much,
that
sir.
is the utility tunnel. No, it's all right.
No,
You're
but
coming in
I mean,
from the
do people
bottom
go
of the
down there
stairwell.
and your heart?
Absolutely. Once we show you, we take you in here, we're going to show you the lights to turn on, the lights to turn off. The only thing, you're going to the silo, and it's a big bedroom. It's very impressive. That's the upper level apartment.
And so, folks, you really can sleep here. You can rent this. We are, how far underground is this? A story or two underground? Could this survive a blast?
No, that's a fallacy. I don't care what the internet's telling these poor people. Yeah, bless their hearts. I just, I'm sorry, there's not enough steel and concrete that could withstand a direct nuclear hit. It's just not going to happen. Again, the design criteria for these sites was take a 1 megaton hit within 1 mile and still launch. It's liquid fueled on an elevator missile system. Those are pretty broad strokes in saying we're going to hope this all works. And of course, what did we find out? It didn't work. I mean, yes, from a technical standpoint, we got great longevity out of the Atlas missile system. It was the physical facilities that gave us the hardest time.
Interesting. Now this, in terms of the proximity,
there's the silo.
There's the silo, obviously without a missile. A couple of questions about this. In terms of just the proximity of, this looks really dangerous.
Oh, it
Are
is.
your guests, I mean, how much access to this do your guests have?
Well, what you're not seeing in this photograph is in the lower right-hand corner would be a red barricade, in essence, pipe that's painted red, and it's the handrail. You're welcome to go out there and look down. Can you see it? You know, we even have more commercial LEDs down there. Just 3 weeks ago, I had, several people go down to the bottom and revamp our lighting down there. The original launch consoles down there that they would have, again, had the president given the emergency war order, launch the missile. There's just, yes. Do we explain to them? No, you can't crawl down here. It's, but to me, it exemplifies what we're really after. Keep in mind, most second generation ICBM sites have to be destroyed by treaty. You're looking at some of the only silos that are left in America. We have 3 sites. I mean, really are the only naturally dry sites with structure. Now, that's the caveat, with structure in the United States. One's my ex-wife's, and the other 2 are partly what I'm involved with, and of course, Site 4.
I'm sorry, I need to just take a pause here. Your ex-wife owns the 3rd?
Yes, sure.
Of course.
Yeah.
I mean, who wouldn't? Perfect sense. Okay, so question about this. I see at some point, obviously this was abandoned and people were allowed to kind of, I imagine in between the decommissioning and the making this available for someone in the public to purchase, people were climbing around here painting on the walls. I mean,
that's why you see all the graffiti. This site being 18 miles
yeah.
out of town. I mean, all of us kids played in this site. I mean, it's just, we explored. I have heard that by the early 1970s, these sites were abandoned. I mean, no power. Yeah. Most of the floor that you see there on the upper level apartment was missing when I played in the site. We would use Coleman lanterns and 50-cent flashlights and climb down cable trays. Yeah, there's looking down on level 3.
This is fascinating and terrifying. All right, I'm going to stop sharing. I do want to get into kind of, I want to talk about 2 things now that are a little, funky for me at least. Explain to those of us that don't know, what is a prepper?
Well, again, to the degree of prepping is looking out for, either i.e. a natural or perhaps a military situation. These people are in fear. I mean, they're wanting a safe outcome. And look, I'll make no bones about it. Missile bases, ex-missile bases provide that. However, contrary to a lot of belief that, everybody believes that there was such a secrecy level with this that, oh, if we told you where they were at, we'd have to kill you. I mean, this is just a fallacy. Everybody knows where these sites are. I mean, certainly our enemy does. They were part of the arsenal 60 years ago.
Right.
Can it withstand a lot of natural disaster? Oh, absolutely. From the EMP proof, electromagnetic pulse, dirty bombs. I mean, the sky's the limit. It's really how far do you want to go? These sites provide that. I mean, but keep in mind when I say something like that, most of the silos are full of water, most of the entryways, most of the stairwells, most of the control centers. I mean, if you took 123 first generation sites and of that 72 Atlas Fs, I'm going to come back to you and say probably every bit of 70 of them are fairly full of water. And I mean, I doubt seriously, you'd want to use them, or they're so heavily contaminated, you wouldn't want to. My advice to you is run, don't walk.
In terms of your regular guests, just in terms of, I'm sure that there are your proximity to Roswell is interesting. Roswell, for the one person in the world that does not know, is the alleged maybe aliens landed there in 1947. And so it is a town that now one of the big tourist industry is around UFOs and aliens. Do you get people there looking for aliens or interested in aliens,
absolutely.
or that's part of their
and
quest?
we just came past the 76th anniversary, which was over the 4th, just last week. I mean, we've been booked. I mean, everybody, including your magazine, wants to know, how do we do it? I haven't a clue. I'm sorry, I took one business class in college. I mean, I was not a marketing guru. Everyone asks us the same question, and we just keep doing what we're doing and it seems to work. And everybody asks us, do we have a website? Do we have a how do you do your marketing? And we don't. It's all word of mouth, but it really seems to generate. So
You are booked. I'll find a way to, if maybe my colleague, Jess, can pop the link to your Airbnb in the comments. We will certainly include this in an email to everyone after the show as well. But if you're interested in staying there, plan ahead because it is booked up.
Well, we're very honored about that. I mean, the other thing is, look, we enjoy here explaining the history because, look, if you went to Roswell, 18 miles away, half the people there don't even know if these sites exist.
Interesting.
I mean, it just is, because keep in mind, from a generational standpoint, the Air Force Base has been gone since 67. I mean, this is a whole period of, if not one generation, two generations.
Right. Now, I would be how long have you and your family lived on this site?
Since the day a little over 2.5 years ago, we decided to put this on Airbnb. And to be very frank with you, it was my best friend who we played in this site together and went to military school here. He lives in San Diego. He made a comment to me, why don't you put this on Airbnb? And I thought he was crazy. I won't say the exact words I called him, but but after doing a bit of research, I was like, wow, okay. I mean, the other thing is we even do camping. I mean, this is really, and again, we just enjoy telling the history.
I love that. Well, your passion for the history is really infectious. So in terms of we're getting some questions that I just want to, the safety of your site, like you had mentioned earlier, some sites are just far too toxic to turn into any, kind of residential. Sue asks, about the process, the expense, the process of keeping fresh, breathable air down there. What does that entail?
Well, I mean, one of your exterior photographs looking on of the entryway you see in the background next to my vehicle, you'll notice there's two uprights with ventilators on them. Those are the air and exhaust shafts originally to the launch control center. What we've done is we just turn around and we put ventilators on it that we create a negative pressure. Look, I'm big on let's let Mother Nature do the work for us. So we create a negative pressure, which draws off of 3.5 million cubic feet of pre-cooled air from the silo. It goes down over 40 feet and up. We're averaging six to seven air exchanges per hour. There's no possible way you're going to have a difficult time breathing. I mean, it just is.
All right. And question Karen asks, and it's one I have myself.
Mm-hmm.
Is it haunted? Have any weird experiences, be it aliens, funky mojo from the Cold War?
I know, I mean, I guess number
in the middle
one
of
is
the
you'd
night.
have to run scared. I mean, and I'm sorry, in this business, I don't run scared. And I'm not saying scared of the fact of, look, I can tell you different accidents. We had a crane accident here at one of the sites and 16 folks got killed. I can tell you that as a kid, when I was in that site, the hair on the back of my neck stood up and I couldn't figure out why. It wasn't until many, many years later that I understood what had occurred. Now, have I seen apparitions? No. Have I felt, I mean, again, perhaps I find it, just, look, I've walked out of these things in pitch black. I mean, it
does not
I don't know what to tell you. I mean,
yeah.
There is a side of me that is going to come back and say to you that, look, when we were kids, and I'll be very upfront with you, we call this the devil silo because there was a group of devil worshipers in the Roswell area in the 70s. And they would go down here and do their animal sacrifices and have thousands of candles. And
in your silo?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, but you know, I mean, the other side of that is I'm Catholic. I don't, I just, I don't have a problem. I just, you know, I just, but I will
Freak you
say,
out.
I mean, it just, well, you know, I think more of it was done as a ploy. I mean, when you go into some of the more vandalized Roswell sites, you're going to see all, you know, welcome to the gates of hell. Welcome to, I mean, you know, take it for what it's worth, but
Right.
it's just to get in your head. I mean, in all
It's a
honesty,
wild neck of the woods for
I
sure.
mean, where I kind of laugh is all these years later, I met the pad chief for this site during its operational period. And again, not getting too religious, but he was Catholic and he had the priest come out here and bless the site when it was operational.
Oh
That
boy.
means there was a 4 megaton warhead sitting on top of the missile. Now, I find that interesting.
That is interesting. Yes, that is
I
absolutely.
mean, I just, you know, yeah, through the years, can you walk into the silo today, turn everything off? And come on, when you walk into the silo at level 2, you're nearly 40 feet underground. You're going to hear, I mean, I'm sorry, it creaks, it bangs, it moans,
That's
things
what
are
I'm looking for.
falling. It's
Yeah.
the original structure. I mean, this is how far out it was. That room is 52 feet in diameter, 186 feet deep. We can suspend on the original spring struts and mounts an 18-story building or 4 million pounds. Nothing was ever done like this. I mean, I don't even know how to, other than that, and there are very few sites that have the bulk of that still left.
Before I let you go, as we're heading over time, please tell us why you are not in your silo right now.
Look, yeah, I'm not bragging. Please do not get me wrong. I mean, we have a film crew here right now that's doing a pretty substantial filming in the control center, and I couldn't even go down to our separate apartment and do this. I didn't feel comfortable because the last thing I want to do is, with all the manpower you see here, I can't fathom what this is costing. But see, coming out of Southern California, I mean, I get the idea of all the filming. It's Netflix. It's a UFO. I mean,
They're doing it. The Netflix is currently on site in your silo filming a show about UFOs or similar,
yeah, they're doing
as far as we
interviews.
know.
Yes, ma'am.
So what an amazing situation you have found yourself in. I mean, you were really born into it, but to have followed it through to this very
You know,
modern
everybody
day.
asks, it says, well, how long are you going to do this? And my answer, to be quite frank with you, is that, well, when it ever gets boring, I guess I'll quit.
I mean, I can't imagine that happening anytime soon.
Well, I mean, this is going to be the second set that I've helped raise the silo doors. Well, really kind of 2.5. I just can't wait. There are certain things that are high on my list. And then I've got a site that's already got the doors open that we're going through and beginning. It is basically lied untouched, yes, vandalized for 60 years. And so we're debating the factor right now, are we going to put glamping units on the surface, much like what I'm working on here?
Love glamping.
And I don't know. I mean, we haven't gone that far, and everybody's kind of funny from the standpoint of, you know, they want a timeline, and they look at me like I'm crazy, and I said, well, I don't have one. I guess it's just up here. I
So
don't.
this is the third site that you're considering?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I played in the other one with the doors open now for, oh my God, since I was at school here in the 70s.
I love that you just keep buying missile silos that you used to play in as a child. That's very charming. Does it have a ring video door? Those are a lot of fun.
You know, no, we don't. And my rationale is simply this. I mean, in light of one of the requirements with Airbnb and cameras, we just make a simple decision. We're not going to have any.
Okay.
Therefore, we don't ever have to cross that bridge of, oh my gosh, you're filming us. Or, I just don't want to go down that road. There's always somebody here. So, like the question, to be very frank with you, from my ex-wife that owns a site, do we have a Ring doorbell? No. Normally, how do we know? Well, you can bang on the door, but remember those air vents? I mean, we can hear what's going on on the surface. I left the 2 original blast valves off for a reason. And that was also not only bringing in air, but also the idea of, we could hear what was going on.
Your whole lifestyle is a 3-part series for Discovery Channel. I'm pitching it right now. Just want to follow you with cameras all the time. I'll come tell those Netflix people we're doing a reality show.
3 weeks ago, we sent Raul and I brought in another friend. They rappelled to the bottom. It's on YouTube, Silo Man. You'll see the latest of when we went. I'm sorry. I made a promise. I made a promise to my wife. I wouldn't go down because I obviously, again, too many accidents.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
I mean, if you look closely at some of those videos we have on YouTube, you're going to see some of the original blast doors at the very, very bottom of that site. I can't find some of my original pictures I shot in the 70s as a kid. And so I had made the comment, I have not seen those blast doors. The salvagers ripped them off and threw them to the bottom. Wow. And all of a sudden there were photographs of them, also on Instagram. And to me, that's fun. And the followers that we do have, it's just a heightened sense of adventure. It truly is. You know what? We tell people that stay here, welcome to the Silo Club. Because if you can come in here and do that, then you're part of the club.
Oh my gosh, I want to be in the club so bad. Folks, Alta trip.
Well, you come here and we'll take you down to the bottom of the other site. For right. Special guests, we do a guided tour.
Well, Gary Baker, you are so much fun. You're just fantastic to talk to. Your passion for this is really exciting and wonderful. And I am so grateful that you spent the time to talk with our wonderful writer, Mark Wallace. Again, folks, check out the article. We'll email that to you this afternoon, as well as a video of us chatting today and a link on where you can book Gary's. I
mean, we really appreciate it. We truly do. Thank you so very, very much. And it's been a pleasure.
Oh, it's been a pleasure.
I know, I will say as the caveat, look, lots of people that talk to us, they have this idea that, we're all war hawks and we're into the bomb. And it can't be further from the truth, from the standpoint that, look, this place had a mission and I respect that. And I don't judge. The other side of that is, I think most of all from a historical standpoint, I hope we never have to use these weapons again.
Sure.
But, it is such a big part of our country. Don't kid yourself. And again, we're seeing it again today. How many times do we constantly hear the other side talk about what they have? It's not so much us.
Yeah. No, it's fascinating. It's timely. It's interesting. It's really informative and interesting. And I've learned so much.
So you can go around and tell all your friends that you're really into prior weapons of mass destruction basing modes.
I feel like that would make me very cool. So we'll do.
That's it.
All right, folks, before you go, join us next week. We're going to talk with architect Michael Lehrer about tiny homes for LA's unhoused people. That's part of our Gimme Shelter section as well. And again, we're going to shoot you all of this info, Gary's interview today, and where to rent his property in an email later today. Thank you, Gary Baker. Really.
Thank you, ma'am.
All right, take care, everyone.
You bet.
Bye.
Bye-bye.